how do I get my mom or dad or parents to let go of this stuff, already anticipating the day when it's going to be our own burden to deal with?
Welcome to the Minimal Mom Podcast. Today, Dawn is joined by Matt Paxton. He is the host of the two-time Emmy-nominated TV series Legacy List. Matt is also the author of the best-selling book, Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. Today, Dawn is joined by Zoe Kim, the author of Minimalism for Families. Zoe partners with individuals to tackle the challenges of cluttered home and life. She believes in developing a minimalist lifestyle through positive perspective changes and practical solutions.
Well, Matt, I want to pick your brain today, and then we're going to talk with Zoe too and kind of tie minimalism into decluttering sentimental stuff. But will you clear this up just to get started? Are some people just naturally more sentimental and more attached to heirloom items, things from childhood, things that have been passed on than other people?
Yes, some people are naturally more inclined to, I think, better people, like quality, better people are more sentimental. That's my personal view.
Is they have feelings?
Look, I will say this. We look at generationally, right? We got to look at like the last three generations, our grandparents, our parents, and now us. If we're at 45, that takes us up to 95, actually, in some situations.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you got to remember, like, families were born on this stuff. Like, the dining room is the room I always talk about, sentimental. Like, my mom and my grandma were deeply sentimental about the dining room. We do not have a dining room in our house. She actually designed the house to not have one. So, like, great example of how three generations, the family was built in the dining room for our grandparents. Like, they came back from the war, they got a GI Bill, they bought a house, they created what we know as the suburbs. They went to Sears and bought stuff, either via catalog or in live person. And then they went to church every Sunday with their community. They had parties on Friday night. Like that, the house is much more central to the families we became. So for you and me and the viewer listening right now, that's why we're so sentimental. Because like what we know is the definition of love and family created in a room with that stuff. Our kids don't have that sentiment about dining rooms. They have it about other things. They still have sentiment.
Yes.
Just not the same stuff.
Yeah. Not created in the same way. So, because we don't have a formal dining room, but we do have a dining, like a table in our, right off of our kitchen, and try to have dinners, every night together, just without the hutch and without all the china.
Yeah.
No formal place settings. And have you been able to tie it in? Are there certain personality types that seem to me be more sentimental or attached to things? Or is it just, does it have to do with our experiences and the people that came before us or what we were taught growing up?
It's the oldest adult daughter is primarily
who it is.
It is, because that person is tasked with carrying the family story. It's not the male gets skipped. I don't mean to play male roles here, male or female roles, but like, I've been cleaning.
You do have a lot of experience.
I've been cleaning estates out for 25 years, and it's 97%. It's the oldest adult daughter that hires us, like that high, 97%. So if you're watching right now and you're like, I'm the oldest adult daughter, well, you're the one that does it, and you're the one that, since you were 8 years old, you've been raising your sisters, and your dad loved you more, and all. It gets very emotional and very sentimental. Like, that's why we hold on to the stuff. It's never about the stuff ever. It's always about the people and the stories attached
and
to
the
it.
expectations.
That's what makes it so hard.
I
also feel like part of it might be people's attachment style to, what do they feel attached to? Do they feel attached to things, or is it relationships, or things like that? So I think that can play a big role.
Well, and I have noticed these dynamics. I've been helping my mom. So she's 65. So she falls into that sandwich generation there between grandparents and us kids. And I've definitely witnessed her trying to navigate the expectations that were put on her during her upbringing of what should be kept and what is considered special, versus now her sensing she does have some freedom in this, that she does get to choose what she wants to keep in her house. But that loyalty runs pretty deep. Like,
so I'll argue she doesn't get to choose. She has a guilt. She has a guilt. So if you're over 55,
okay, she wants to think she should She should be choosing.
Yeah, well, there's an obligation. If you're over 55, you have an obligation to do what your parents or grandparents wanted you to do.
Yeah.
So we see this whole like generation of people that keep stuff because they're afraid of what a dead person would think if they didn't get rid of it. And I'll
Or a
say
living
that.
person, but but
No, I mean, I say that very
Okay.
intentionally. Like
Okay.
we have a guilt. We're like, oh my God, my grandfather would be so upset. My
Okay.
grandmother would be devastated if I got rid of this. So I'm going to keep it. Well, how old's your grandma? Oh, she's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah.
And yet you're afraid to upset her. And that's why we see people like your mom's age holding on to things because they're so guilt ridden.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Catholics, like it's everybody. And the Catholics carry guilt really, really well, but so does everybody else. Right. And so I'm telling you, it's so deeply rooted in how we were raised and how honestly, the stronger the family bond, I mean, it should be a trophy, right? The harder you are to let go of sentimental stuff, it's because you had such an amazing relationship with your family. So you should wear it with pride.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
Zoe, did you grow up in a family where you expected to like keep sentimental stuff and to think things were special and keep them forever and ever?
No.
Okay.
I had a transient childhood, so moving a lot. And fortunately, when I started writing about minimalism and simplicity, I had 2 kids at the time back in 2011. And after a couple of years, I got really fortunate because my mom just like she caught the bug, basically. Like she was inspired. And so I didn't even have to come in and be like, Mom, you should do all this. She just started doing it on her own. And she has simplified so much and downsized. So I'm really fortunate for that. I did, however, help her take care of my grandmother's things after my grandmother passed away. And maybe that helped her see too, because I was there also like, wait, I don't want to leave all this stuff for my kids, And she would ask me, but she definitely caught on like, wait, our kids maybe don't want all this stuff.
Wow, Matt, that's the exception though, not the rule. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that doesn't happen.
But basically, because like if you want to inspire parents, everyone who's listening, I mean, you'd have to start a blog, you'd have to start writing, right?
There's a lot that goes into it.
Yes, but I guess if I could just suggest like a little, a mini part, a micro part of that would be just let them hear you talk about it. Let them hear you say it before you even tell them, please get rid of all the stuff that you've been collecting for me that you feel like I need and you can't let go and generations of
Well,
stuff.
and actually, Matt, I did want to ask you that because many of the women that I work with say, how do I get my mom or dad or parents to let go of this stuff, already anticipating the day when it's going to be our own burden to deal with? So how do you help our generation navigate that to help our parents let go of stuff?
Well, I mean, I got a 25-year answer for you, but at the end of the day, what I've learned really, it's pretty simple. We hold on to the stuff because of the people that we love. Period. We hold on to that stuff because the memories are attached to it. And so for me, I'm really about telling the stories. Like, and I talked a little bit last time I was on your podcast, but I've really honed in on that. And I've spent a lot more time getting people to share their stories, talk about it. Because believe it or not, once you've shared the stories enough, that item, we don't let go of the stuff because we don't want the stories to be forgotten. But if you share them and you document those stories, then the items aren't forgotten. I mean, I did a survey of 100 clients of mine. That was it. And I wanted to know what was the main reason they couldn't let go of stuff. And the first reason was they didn't want to be forgotten when they were gone. And number 2 was they didn't want their parents to be forgotten when they were gone. Yet their parents had been deceased for over 25 years. Wow. I mean, most of my clients are your mom's client. Actually, your mom would be young for my client. Most of my clients are 50 to 80. And they're talking about their parents who have been gone for sometimes 50 years. But they want those stories to live on. And so it's really, and look, I stumbled upon this myself. I mean, I'm pretty open. My dad died when I was 24. And I tell the story about my dad every day. I mean, we have 6 boys, 1 girl, and none of the boys ever met my dad. But they get annoyed because they could tell every story about my dad. Right.
Well, you're a very good storyteller.
But that's how I let the person live on. So do we need any of my dad's stuff? No. We have 1 chair. That's it.
Well, and I mean, I would recommend both of your guys' books. So Zoe is the author of Minimalism for Families. So if you are navigating and wanting to achieve minimalism with your family,
Yeah.
definitely grab that. And then Matt has Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. And I mean, I don't know. I've been recommending to women, get a copy of Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. Give that to your parents.
Mhm.
You read it as well. And this is going to give you common language, because I love your idea of the legacy list where we're curating a collection of like the most cool, special things. And that I just feel like that's such an honoring process
Mm.
of letting your loved ones know that I do value you, I do care about you, I do want to help curate this collection, so that we can remember you and that your stories will continue on. Now we can't keep every physical item, right? And so tell us a little bit more, Matt. I know I've shared about this quite a bit and talked about it, but in your own words, tell us a little bit more about the legacy list.
So, I mean, the funny thing is, I did this for what, 18, 19 years before I met Zoe. And so I was actually writing that book. I was writing Keep the Memories when I fell in love with Zoe. And so when you read those two books, you're going to be like, it seems like Matt stole a couple things from Zoe. Well, I did. I mean, she influenced me, right? Like she converted me
Yeah.
into I literally converted to a minimalist.
Yeah, the mindset.
And I'm still kind of in trouble with my family because I got rid of everything. I mean,
Okay.
I come
Yeah.
from an old school family that keeps everything.
Everything.
It's a
Okay.
reason I only did hoarded houses for the first 15 years because
Mhm.
that's how I learned in my own family.
Yeah.
But along the way between hoarding and then it was, believe it or not, when I did hoarding, it was called a fire list. And the
Oh,
concept
okay.
is
Yeah.
very simple. If your house catches on fire,
Mhm.
Mhm.
what 5 items you want to grab
Mhm.
before you leave? And back then I would have people write a list, like a huge list. And they'd be like, can I write on the back? Like, great. Yeah. Single space, like write it all up. And then this tells you how long ago I would take out a stopwatch, from my track when I ran track, believe it or not a cell phone. I took out a stopwatch and I would hit go. And I go, you got 2 minutes, grab anything you want on that list. And people would be like,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, you're done. The house is gone. What do you want? And when I got further into
Oh,
my career, it proves the point every day, which you can't save
yeah.
everything. And
Right.
so it
Mhm.
really prioritized the 4 or 5 items. And when I do this in classes or in speeches or in audiences,
Mhm.
people always say like, well, I want my pet, I want my papers, I want my
Mhm.
photos.
Yeah.
And they never say partner, which always makes me laugh, but they
Mm.
always say, you know,
You hope they get out.
I'm
never, I've
gonna
been doing this,
trust they're
yeah,
taking care of
they,
themselves.
they never say that. But it's the important things, right? Your pet,
Yeah.
your paperwork, your
Yeah.
pictures, and that's
Mhm.
about it, right? But it's all attaches back to the memories, you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
And so when I got further into my career and after I met Zoe, it was like, well, this is more about. And I had started doing that show called Legacy List.
Yeah.
And when I was coming up with the name for the show. I wish can tell you it was something more special.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can't do a show called Fire List. That's just weird, especially on PBS.
Yeah.
And when I realized, like, oh, it's legacy. This is what it's really about.
Mm.
It's about legacy.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I was just telling. I mean, I would go on stage and tell stories about my grandparents
Yeah.
Mhm.
for days. I mean, and I still do every week. I tell stories for days and days and days. And the book is filled with stories.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the reason is that that's what I want people to do. I want them to tell their stories about those 5 items. So for me,
Mhm.
it was really simple. I grew up sitting on my dad's front porch, sitting with all the neighbors, telling stories, sitting on my grandparents' back porch. I mean, I just grew up visiting. I mean, we called it visiting,
Yeah.
in Virginia, it was visiting. And you'd go after church and you'd visit and you'd tell stories. And the old dudes would tell the same stories. And now I'm that old dude telling the same story
Yeah.
every week. But like, that's how it really created. And I will tell you, people I love that you tell your mom or other people like to read that book, because the book, Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff, will really,
Mhm.
it's written in the tone for a 65-year-old to say, oh, I do have value. My
Mhm.
stories do matter.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
not throwing everything away.
Mhm.
This is actually celebrating what I have.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good way as well for people that struggle with feeling like everything is sentimental. Like
Yeah.
you look at your home and you feel like everything is sentimental and you can't get rid of anything. I think that this is a really good creating a legacy list of your items. I'm not prescribed to a particular number, but
I say 5.
he says 5. Okay.
Don't go above 7, because then 7 becomes 10.
Okay. So
5 becomes 7.
So let's
7
go with
becomes
5,
10.
right? Start small, make it bite size. I like this. Um, And so you pick your top, 5 favorite that come to your mind, and you start there. And I think that that can help people focus and then actually realize what really is important and what really is sentimental. And maybe it's not all of it, and just help prioritize so that then the generations below them as well will know, wow, this really was important.
You just said something really important. You said, it's a lot of it's really like sometimes everything's sentimental.
Yeah, what do you say to the person that's like, "You don't understand."
Yes.
Like, how
When-
could I possibly choose
Yeah.
5?
So let's dissect that. When
Yeah.
you are still grieving, when you are in the middle of grieving,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a subjective term, but when you are in a grieving it might be 20 years past someone passing away, but you're still grieving. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's valid, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're grieving, everything is sentimental.
Okay.
And this legacy list process helps you really, again, the legacy list is a list of the 5 most important items in your home.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's your top 10.
Mhm.
Remember when Letterman used to have his top 10? All right. I'm aging myself heavily here. It's your top 5 items in the house.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
again, if the house burned down, it's the 5 things you need.
Yeah.
But then you're going to tell the stories of those 5
Yeah.
items. Why are they so important? And when
Yeah.
you do that, that is sometimes, like I will give this class a lot of times
Mhm.
at like senior living communities.
Mhm.
And I'll have people on one side of the room crying and on the other side, they're laughing. And then by the end of the class, they've done both again.
They're
right?
all, they're
So if
so
you're
Yes.
crying and laughing, then you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is a freeing process. So you do have to tell the
Yeah.
stories to grieve.
yeah.
And the grief is what's holding you back. Right.
Mhm.
That's why
Mhm.
everything is sentimental.
Mhm.
Everything is
Mhm.
sentimental because you're grieving. And so,
Yeah.
it may not be an event that happened yesterday, but you're holding on to those items because of the person that's attached to them.
Yeah,
But
I think that's so great. I love the quote that says grief demands a witness because maybe it's not even trying right now to decide what are the most important things. It's figuring out how you're going to tell the stories, who are you going to tell them to, and beginning to tell the stories. I feel like then will help you sort out, right? What items truly do need to make it onto the legacy list. And we're going to talk about the class that you guys have coming up, to help people with this very thing. If you need someone to walk alongside you, but do you find that as people tell the stories, it becomes more clear which things they want to keep and which things they can let go?
yeah,
Absolutely.
if you put down 5, only 3 are going to make it. Right.
Mhm.
And then 2 that you didn't even think would
Yeah.
be in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because what you end up having is like your children or your loved ones or your brother or sister, someone else tells a story. Like one of
Yeah.
the things you hear me say a lot is memories create more memories.
Hmm.
And so when you
Yeah.
start to tell stories, the thing that was most important to you, you realize, man, it's third and fourth because something else popped up because a
Yeah.
memory created another
Mhm.
memory that created
Yeah.
another memory. And
That's so
it's
good.
that process of
Mhm.
creating a legacy list, deciding which items,
Mhm.
dedicating the stories, documenting it, and then sharing it. And the sharing is really the key, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you start to share it like that, totally you have to revamp your list
Yeah.
because then you find out someone cared something else totally
Yeah.
different about it.
Yeah. I also feel like creating the legacy list helps you move forward in your process of, getting past holding on to so many sentimental things. It helps you move forward because you feel like you've accomplished something. Like it's not just all sitting there and you're
Mhm.
looking at it and nobody wants it and nobody knows what it is or what it means. And so I do think that that can give you a sense of accomplishment and direction as well.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah.
like you said, yeah, you're just talking about the memories and it brings up more memories. And maybe that's going to give you the motivation and the fuel as well to tackle more things.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you mentioned that you still have family members that aren't so happy with you for letting so much stuff go. So how do we navigate that dynamic with the family members that think we should? They're not signing up to keep everything and house it all, but they think either we should keep it all or we shouldn't be telling our parents they can
Yeah.
let go of this stuff. How do we navigate
So
that?
I'll avoid the personal side of that, and I will say because still want my mom
Just
to
in case
come
they're
visit.
listening. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, my mom struggles with this. She thinks it's crazy,
Okay.
right? Absolutely thinks it's
Mhm.
crazy. She doesn't
Okay.
understand. I mean, every question is, well, what would your grandfather think? And I'm like, he's good, dude. Like, he would want me to have the life that I have. He'd want me to be happy.
Yeah.
But like, this guilt is so real. And so a lot of times I say, people, great. If you want me to store this item, like, I'm good. This is why I love the item. And I tell the item and then I tell the story and I love it. By the way, that memory's right here. And now I've got it on my artifact. Like, I'm good.
Mhm.
I've recorded the memory. I'm happy. I don't need it. Do you want it?
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, no,
Mhm.
no, I don't. Okay, great. So then I'm supposed to carry it for you, right? And so so first thing I tell people, hey, if you want it, come get it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I don't take on it's two things that I repel now. I'm not a storage unit and I'm not a delivery service. And so I make it very clear to, if someone else thinks that this item should be saved, then great, please, it's yours.
Yeah.
You may come get it
You
by
make
this day.
arrangements. Yeah.
But we're be really careful here. We're setting it's yours.
Yep.
You're welcome to have it. Come get it.
By
I
this
need
day.
approval. And then I've said, here's the date. You come get it. And I've also very slightly said, I ain't taking it to you. I'm not taking on them. And if they say no to those three things, then it's not as important to them as they thought.
Yep.
And then you do what you want with it.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm a big on letting sure the rest of the family knows. It's oftentimes not the person that wants you to keep it. By the way, this also accounts for if you're the adult child and you have, always a lot of my clients are saying, well, I've got all my adult kids stuff in the attic.
Yeah.
Great. How old are your adults? Oh, they're 45. They're on their third house, right?
Yeah.
The kids on the third house, yet mom and dad are still in the first house. They've been there 55 years. And you got all this mediocre art that's, from a guy that's now in his 40s and is not an artist, right? Doesn't know how to get rid of it. And it's very simple. You've got to document it again, tell the stories and get rid of it.
Yeah.
And if you celebrate those stories and you share all the items and you share the stories, I promise you it's easier to get rid of.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit if your dad were still living today, how would you document his life and his stories to make sure they were safe and you could pass them on?
That's my dad's painting. This is my dad's ring.
Yeah.
I'm good. I've just done it twice in the last 30 seconds.
Well, I mean, but one way you would document it is through the legacy list.
Yeah.
And then Artifacts.
Yeah.
Tell us more about Artifacts.
I use a tool called Artifacts. It's Artifcts. It's an app I came across. I was trying to build it. And I found out these two women from the CIA had already built it.
Amazing.
It's an amazing app.
Yeah.
Artifacts.com. You just take a picture of the item and then you hit either audio record or video record. And I literally will hand the phone to my client. I do it with my clients now too, where I'll say, hey, here's this really cool item. Like my dad's ring is on there, right? And the whole story's on there. I took a picture of it and then I'm able to put all the information on it. And then I recorded all the stories of my dad. I tell all the stories about when my dad wore it. I put pictures of I found a picture the other day of my dad wearing it at my college graduation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I just threw it up on there. Yeah. And then my boys saw my young kids who never met my dad, but are scarily like my dad, right? Like it's alarming how similar to my dad they are, specifically the oldest, and to an alarming way. It's crazy. But I was like, hey, this is my dad wearing this ring. And they're like, well, Dad, he's got your ring on. I'm like, no, it was actually his ring. And now I wear it. And now one of you will get it, later. Yeah. But Artifacts allows you to put all these items together. You can list them all. You can do the mediocre art, all that. You can do anything. It's amazing. And you can literally record either video or audio story. And so it puts it all in one place. And I love it, man. I use it quite a bit. Yeah. And then you have the item. You no longer need it.
Yes. That's so good. Well, and Matt, you were the host of Hoarders for how many years? 13 years, did you?
16 seasons, so 13 years, yeah.
So most of us know someone, whether they're formally diagnosed with hoarding disorder or just really have we call it hyper inventory, right? A lot of stuff. And so are they able to go through sentimental stuff if we're trying to help a family member or a friend or someone we know that just has a lot of inventory that they're working with? Are they able to look at sentimental stuff in these same ways, or do they have a different relationship with their sentimental things?
So that's a totally different relationship. I mean, hoarding is caused by trauma, right? There is something bad happened in their life, and they're looking for their happiness and self-worth in stuff. Just like someone would look for it in alcohol or drugs or whatever, they're doing it in stuff. Okay. And so I always say to everybody, the trauma has to be dealt with through therapy before any of this can happen. And honestly, I think all of us can take that advice. Right?
I was actually thinking, of course, that is their volume is more and the attachment is deeper and, rooted in trauma, but also for people that struggle with just letting go of your sentimental stuff. I mean, that could be trauma as well.
Oh,
yeah.
And
I always say for hoarding, the volume of stuff, only for me, weight loss and hoarding behave the same as visual awareness of your pain, right? You gain 400 pounds, you can see it, right? That's trauma induced. Same thing with hoarding, right? I took 1 million pounds of trash out of a lady's house, right? Literally 1 million pounds of trash. When I got to understand her story, dude, that wasn't enough. For the pain that this one went through. And so I will say with the hoarding, can they do it? absolutely, I've seen hundreds of my clients, once they go through therapy, and therapy has advanced a lot in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to get an 85-year-old man to sit on the couch and talk about his feelings? No, I'm not. But can I get that guy to volunteer? Can he go through REMF, that rapid eye movement therapy? Absolutely. Like there's a lot of things you can do to help someone. But if you've got someone that's hoarding or just being held back, maybe they're not hoarding, but they just are being held back by trauma. They don't need to go to hoarding therapy. They need to go to therapy for, the woman that broke their heart when they were 18. I know that sounds crazy, but like, that's a lot of times what happened, whatever the trauma is, it's a loss or, something bad. But once you do that, then you can go along. But we all feel the same way. We are celebrating. We're looking for our self-worth and value in our stuff, and we're celebrating it through our items. And so when we hold on to so much, that's very, depends who you are, subjective. I mean, in our house, like, I mean, if you have, 10 things, that's a lot in our house, right? Like I'm thinking about my shoes, right? I have a lot of shoes. I mean, I have more shoes. I have more shoes than Zoe does. Like double.
Hands
right?
down.
Like double. Actually, probably three. And but like for me, I make space for it with other stuff. I get rid of everything else, right? So that's but like for me, that's my joy. That brings me happiness. It is what it is.
Are you generally a proponent? Like, do you encourage people to keep stuff if it brings up sad memories? Or are you more of a like, hey, let's just keep the stuff that like reminds of us of good times and good people and good seasons? I sometimes wonder when women come to me with this question if it brings up sad, traumatic memories, if it's more a feeling some kind of obligation or expectation to keep it in, not necessarily that's for our best good.
Right. Out of obligation, no. But I would think personally, if I was still keeping something that was making me sad, maybe I'm still going through the grieving process. Right. And so I would say for me, that wouldn't be the right time to let it go. Because even though it is still making me sad, now, of course, I'd want to be doing something to keep moving through that and not sit in it for 20 years. Maybe that would be starting to get rid of things that didn't make me sad. Just everyday items.
I will tell you, the obligation comment is 100% dead on. If you're doing it out of obligation, but you don't want it, get rid of it, girl. You don't need it. But I will tell you, if you're not sure if you're ready to let go of it or not yet, you're not. That's the answer. Keep it. Like that's the answer, because I have hundreds of clients that were new widows, right? New widows in their 50s. And maybe early 60s. And all their friends want them to go out. Like their husband died 2 years ago. They're like, it's time. You got to clean out his closet. You got to get rid of his stuff. And they're like, I'm not ready yet. And what really is going on there is their friends want them to go out and date. Right. Yeah. And the lady's not ready yet. And I can assure you, you will know when it's time. Like I can't, and if you don't know, it is not time. If you're doing it because you think your mom would be mad at you, I don't care if you're 16 or 60. That's a silly. Well, at 16, you probably should do what your mom said. At 18, all right, 18 or 80. Let's say 18 or 80. Right.
I think up until 24, at least until their brain is fully
24.
There you go.
Right, 24 or 240, right? Whatever you are. Like if you're doing it just so you don't upset someone else, don't do that. But if you think you might still need it, then you probably do, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. Well, tell us a little bit about your masterclass that you're going to be putting on, because again, I think this is such a big topic and many of us need extra help, accountability, a date on the calendar when we can join you live. So tell us more about it.
Yes. So we are very excited. We've been thinking about this for a long time. The course that we're going to be offering is called Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. So we're going to be helping you with decluttering and your sentimental items. And as we've talked about here, one of the ways that we like to help people do that, you specifically mostly.
So we're going to help you create your legacy list.
Is by creating a legacy list. Yeah.
So we'll go through the legacy list. We'll teach you how to make it. We'll teach you how to tell the story. A lot of people aren't great storytellers, and that is a roadblock for them. So we're going to actually teach you how to document your items, how to tell your stories, where to document them. There's lots of different, we love artifacts, but it could be anything. Lots of different items out there, and then how to share that story, who to share it with. Like actually encourage you to get out there. And then Zoe's going to take a lot of our tips that once you've dealt with the sentimental, now how do we start clearing out that house again?
the sentimental items, and we're going to have Q&As, which Matt and I love because we want to be able to answer your specific questions as well and really help you work through your struggles. And so that's why we feel like the Q&A part of this is so important and beneficial.
And we've got a lot of, besides the legacy list, we'll have a lot of other options, like with upcycling and just different things you can do to actually share those memories, but still get the item out of the house.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so good because many of us, especially if we're in our 40s, we're thinking about our own personal legacy list, right? But then also many of us are helping parents and grandparents to curate this as well. So I feel like this is such a worthwhile investment for you because man, if you can grasp this idea, I can't believe like the guilt that it takes off. So many of us we just worry so much about stuff and it's in storage and it's getting wrecked and it's not archived in any kind of way and it's deteriorating. That really causes a lot of stress, even though we try to push out of our mind and not worry about it. And so to be able to have a safe community to do this with and accountability and it's spread out over a few days, I think that is so helpful and wise. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have starter story questions because, as you can see, Matt is a very good storyteller. So to help you be able to talk to your parents or your family that you're helping downsize as well. So yeah, it isn't just for our stuff; it is for your parents.
So yeah, I'll say like story starters have become a really big thing for me. So I'll write out a bunch, and you see them on Instagram or TikTok now, where someone has all these cards and everything. We're just going to give you a list of a bunch of questions, but like it starts like simple things like, if you want to ask your I like to have the kids ask the grandparents. So that's the best way to do it. But it could be anything.
Yeah.
Like, what was your, what sport did you play in high school? Like, it always blows people away that like grandma was all state and softball.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't believe it,
Cool.
right?
Yeah. We're going to put the details in the description for your class. And then as we wind up, Matt, what would you say to the person who's maybe listening that feels guilty because their parents or their grandparents, their loved one passed away before they had a chance to record the stories and to archive these special things? What would you say to them?
This gets really deep into my philosophy and stuff. I believe everything happens the way it happened. I'm going to tell the story really quick. I don't know if you've heard the story. I had a buddy of mine I grew up with one of my best friends down the street. His mom had MS the whole time we grew up, had it the whole time. And she lived forever, man. And but she was, debilitating disease over and over and over. And I later found out in my career that like a lot of times couples break up when it gets that debilitating. Like it's a devastating thing to families. And all of her friends were there that MS. And it was just really, the funeral was just this like heavy thing. And all these people get up there and like it's building and building and building for the husband to come up and give the eulogy. And he wanted to say something. And he gets up on stage and the room is just like, we're all just like, oh my God, what's he going to say? It's going to be this, like, we're all going to bawl. He just goes, everything happened exactly how it was supposed to. And he walked off stage and the whole room is just like, and it hit me like so hard. I was a kid. I was a young guy. I wasn't even married yet. But I remember like just being like, oh my God, life works out. So what I want to say is like, man, if you didn't document the stuff, like I take the energy from that guy with me everywhere I go. Everything happened the way it was supposed to. Here's your opportunity to carry that story the right way. Right. So like, we really want you to write this legacy list. It's okay that you don't have your mom saying it, but I do have you saying it with the spirit of how much you love your mom.
Yeah.
That's all we need, dude. Like that is all we need. It might even be better. I have romanticized my dad to be this incredible guy. Actually, the guy drank too much, honestly. He never showed up for my stuff. Once I became a dad, turns out he's a pretty crappy dad. I didn't know that, right? But I didn't know until I became my dad. But I have these amazing, he made me who I am, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to argue sometimes your stories about those loved ones is better than if they did. And I want you to take that positive spirit. I want you to take that energy. And I want you to write those messages the way you remember them for your family. And that's the message that will live on forever. And that's what we want. And when you do that, I promise you, you can let go of those items and you can start cleaning your house and start living your life for you, not for all these people that don't even exist anymore.
Yes. That's so good.
Yeah. I'm going to take this class. I promise you, I'm selling now. I apologize, but this will get you
we
back.
love to help people.
Yeah. I do love to help people,
Yeah.
but I get to see all my clients like free of that guilt, man. Like you asked me, what should I say? You are free of that guilt. Like, I promise you, you don't have to carry it. Life is too short. Free yourself of that guilt and let's start moving forward and living the life we want to create memories for our kids to have, or our friends, whoever. But I'm big on just don't let the stuff hold you back.
It's a way to honor their memory and move forward at the same time.
But your voice is enough. You don't need their voice. Your voice is more than enough.
Yeah.
And they're lucky to have.
Yeah. That's so good. Awesome. Well, so good to get to visit with you guys. And I'm sure everyone listening is like, well, yeah, I want to spend more time with them. So get inside the course. It's very interactive. And you're really going to enjoy the time together. And like you said, just come away with a game plan. I think that's what most of us need is just a clear game plan. And then we can do it, especially with a supportive community. Awesome.
Yes.
We'll make sure all those details are in the description, and we'll look forward to visiting with you guys again soon.
Thank you for joining us on the Minimal Mom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might find value in embracing a simplified life.